This series of videos introduces content from my ebook Insider English, where I delve into how English can be seen from various alternative perspectives. And this video is for those who are maybe more inclined to learn with visuals and audio than by reading. Having said that, I encourage you to go and purchase my ebook for a one-time fee. This includes 270 pages or more and ever increasing, which has content on the cloud as well. So it's filled with useful lists, charts, tables, but no fancy pictures. English is much more than what it's made out to seem through standardization, but also flawed analyses. And so my book gets into that as well. You can also join me on HelloTalk social media app. HelloTalk is where I post content for free from my ebook. So be sure to use the search function when you purchase my book and content. Keywords you can search also on HelloTalk are the following: insider tips, lexis building, phrasals. We have reflexive. I show that these are not the same. Redundancy is something undesirable generally, and pleonasm is just what is common usage. Penultimacy in 5 parts is a theory that I've proposed about the universal aspect of language, how it may be even more holistic than we think. And I think that was inspired by a video I watched from Vsauce on Zipflaw, or what he calls the mystery, which may not be a mystery after all. And that involves the fact that frequent words tend to be shorter. Anyway, it's an interesting theory on its own, and I think if we combine that with how syntax works, the core elements of what is in a sentence or piece of information finds itself at the penultimate position, not at the very end, but just before the end. And this goes along the lines of the Fibonacci ratio, the golden mean, and of course we can argue that there are many other aspects involved in language, such as tone comes into play and so on. But in fact, I've done some research on it, and it seems to be penultimate position even if you do things like fronting. However, that's for you to decide and read up on, and maybe in a decade or so someone will actually uncover what I've put out there. But for now, using have and the intricacies of tenses and all that with perfect, there is no such thing as perfect. And so you're going to be able to read a little bit more about that. And I'll put out a video on that. I'll also put out videos on modality and futurity and backshifting, which involves taking a verb, putting it past to be more indirect. So we're talking about indirectness or politeness, for example, but also in reported speech and in conditionals. And if we put that all into one umbrella, it's backshifting. And that next one, simplification, I talked a little bit about, but we'll be looking at more of that. It involves basically ellipsis of all kinds. Then we have syntax and opposites, comparing words with ER at the end, including rather and prefer. And then we have word stress, tonic stress. We have irregular verbs, so-called irregular, which is basically pronunciation. Sound changes. We've got the IPA pronunciation, which to some extent is very important to understand, especially where it comes to tonic stress. We've got idioms, expressions. I always say create your own idioms when the need arises rather than copying. We've got the definite article. In the last video we had was about the indefinite article. And again, I put out things that are not already in books. You find a lot of standard things and basic things and self-evident things in books. I put out things that may not be quite evident. Then we've got normalized adjectives, and we've got postscript adjectives. I've got English etymology and other resources. So just to show you now in the cloud what I have set up in Evernote for anybody who purchases my book will get, if you include your email address, I give you access to this cloud of resources. This here shows the tips for searching the cloud. So keywords that I've tagged all the files. As you can see down here, biography, Evernote, idioms, search tips, and I'll be adding more as we go along. So we get to table of contents. And if you look here, you'll see that I've made table of contents about 200 most recently worked on posts, and it's ever expanding. And you can search things like phonemes and so on, and you get more content. You've got reference links, you've got a table of contents in alphabetical order. As you can see here, lots of stuff on suffixes, and then you get down there and you get prefixes as well. And I'm still working on the table of contents so that I can get you everything in alphabetical order. I've reached D, letter D. So there you can see here differences, dinosaurs, all kinds of extras, topics, articles. I source all of my content, so if it's not original, I will source it. There you got documentaries, biographies, sample writing, business writing. Best tool is the search. If you want to look for business English, you just go down and you search the business tab, and then you can see here all things related to Lexis building, active, precise verbs when you're applying for a job, for example, all kinds of stuff. So this is basically great content that I put together since 2012. And I'm now putting it out there. So you can get this for a one-time fee, as I say, and then the updates and everything else is free. And if you have questions about the content, you can just directly chat. I think best is to have the Evernote Premium account. I find this is a great program. Evernote is really good for this. And so there you go. I'll leave it at that. And thanks for watching. And keep watching. Thanks.